Hey, what's going on, everyone? Joe Menza here. A quick look at the supplies we're going to use on this video. And I'm going to be using this Kilimanjaro paper. And this paper is very, very thick. And this is 10 by 14 paper, kind of an unusual size. But, this is one of the papers I wanted to try along my journey here. I try a lot of different papers, a lot of different paints, a lot of different techniques. So as I always say, you want to watch these videos first if you want to pick up a few techniques. I kind of don't really do the follow along type videos, but if you want to do some, different, you want to pick up some different things and try some different things, and you're like me and you're experimenting going along in your journey, then I hope you pick something up off of this. So here I'm taking the large brush, the large hake brush, and I'm wetting the paper down. And I use I don't know what you guys use at home, but I use like a plastic. Somebody had cut this out for me, and it's like a plastic backer board, and it gets paint stuck to it. So I'm looking at the paint here, and I'm like, let me just pick up some off the board just to kind of give me something. You need something to initially lay down some paint and say, where am I going to start? I don't even know what I'm going to paint. I paint from imagination. I just, most of this is therapeutic and hobby and fun, as I've always, shared with you. So I just grab some off the backboard, and look, you could just take, after you do that, you can take a little tissue and you can kind of wipe things out here, especially on this kind of paper. This is a cotton paper, and so it does absorb differently than some of the other papers that I use. But look at this already. We have something. Do you see something? Oh, and here I want to share with you, this is like a lipstick holder I ordered off of Amazon, and I decided to put all my paints in here because I have so many different colors, and I'm trying to get my room organized. It's kind of why I haven't shown off my little room that I moved into yet for my art room, is because it's just a mess. So I'm trying to get that thing organized. But anyway, look at this background here now that it's had a couple minutes to dry. You see maybe a little sky or something out of there, or maybe throw some trees. I don't know. For some reason, I had a thought about burnt umber, so I thought I'd dig into that a little bit. That's just burnt umber watercolor. As far as what was on my board, it could be anything. Just use up some of that old paint sometimes. I see people do that, and they'll say, hey, I had some paint left over, and they'll throw that down. So, yes, for some reason I thought brown. We'll see where that takes us. Burnt umber is a very, very nice color. I mean, it's a very nice brown. And I'm just, just kind of dancing this hake brush around and seeing what, maybe form some trees out of it. And I've kind of likened this to sculpting, you're just kind of shaping. And that's why I like the gouache and bringing that in, because I can paint over things as well. So that combination, and it gives me that unique, everybody wants to find their niche where they're trying to, you want to stand out. What you do is a little different than the next person. So I'm just dabbing a little bit. My whole idea is I try to think of textures too, and some of the ways to get textures is through spray bottles, using a tissue, flicking paint from a toothbrush, all of those little things, just to get a unique look. And also on top of that, I want kind of like the oil painting look. A lot of people say, oh, it looks like an oil painting. And that's kind of on purpose, because I've watched many of the oil painters from years gone by. And I originally was going to start doing oils. I had the Bob Ross kit, if you heard me in another video talking about that. Somebody gifted that to me. That's what kind of got this whole ball rolling. But I didn't like the oils. I didn't like the smell, and I didn't want to use like thinner or odorless spirits and all that. So here I've grabbed up some green here, and you can make yellow and blue if that's the best way really to make green. But I'll grab some of these pre-made greens that come in a set. I don't care. I'll mix them with other things. It's all part of the experimentation process. Now here I'm just taking some grays. Now if I take something and it doesn't look right to me, I'll add a little white to it. That's another part of my little experimentation. But what I'm trying to do here is, if I can, share this as if we're doing like a little workshop. What I'm trying to do all the time is I'm trying to come up with those contrasts, that counter change, that thing that gives me the balance of the dark and the light and puts you in a mood and an atmosphere. Those are the things I'm going for. So I'm experimenting with color, light, and the composition. There's only so many compositions you can really do. So you get a couple trees in there, and it's really it's leading you down this experimentation route, and it's fun. It's not like going to work every day. You go to work, get up in the morning, go there, sit there, you whatever you're doing at your job, answer the phone, or whatever it is. It's routine. And the painting's supposed to be fun, so it should never really become a routine. There should always be that pursuit that you're going for. And these are just some of my rambling thoughts. Some of you said they'd like to hear me talk. I don't know why, but when I put videos up where there's just music, people say, "Why aren't you talking?" So here's my background. I've got the background, and now I'm coming in with some just different shades, different brown and blue and yellow and green, all of your main foliage colors. Those are where you're going to hang around. You're going to hang around the foliage colors that you see out in nature, So if you see a nice color, I've seen some really cool ones over the years. Like there's an undersea green, I think that Daniel Smith makes. They're all cool colors. You buy those, you use them a few times, Whether it stays on your palettes is another story, but, it's all about the fun. So, see, you have a unique look here in a way. You have the green and then the brown. All these colors work well together. And then that background. Now, funny is, I could leave it like this. I could leave it right here. A lot of times you don't. A lot of people will get mad at me in a couple of videos. I had people say, "You should have just left it at such and such thing." And it's like, yeah, I agree to a point sometimes. It's like, I could have left it. But when you're in the moment, you're painting, you're like, well, I could do this, I could do that. But when I watch the video back, I'll go, yeah, I could have stopped right here. I would have had a really cool sort of abstract-y looking painting. I should have just left it be. But I'm always shaping and molding and trying to come up with, what I'm seeing in my head is kind of the final product. So here I want to put some more trees in here. I think that was one of the things back in the day when I used to watch, like Bob Ross on TV and stuff. You'd say, "Oh, he's going to ruin it now. He's going to put something in here." Never really did, though. It's like, always thought, oh, this is, he'll say this is the bravery test, and he'll, put something in there and like a tree or something. And it's like, no, and it's like, I can watch myself back and go, oh, what was I thinking? I should have left it right there. So there is that. But here's the beautiful part of it is you could do another one. You can do another one and another one and another one, And before you know it, you'll have boxes of paintings sitting around. I've sold probably well over 150 paintings. And since COVID, I don't know, people don't seem to be wanting to buy paintings as much as they were. So not really worried about it. I enjoyed selling them. I just haven't really been good about putting them on my shop. And my goal down the line is to do like live classes, as a few years down the road. And I think after all this experimentation, hopefully I'll have a lot to pass on to people. But right now it's fun. I want to inspire you listening, whichever person you are. And I know on Patreon, all the names of the people that I have on there, and a lot of my regular people that leave comments on YouTube. And pick up your brush and just get some color on there. If you have to say, okay, what am I thinking? Think of a color. How about yellow? Do something with a sort of yellow theme. Put that yellow on there and just feel the flow of the paint. And just, get into it, get into a rhythm, and then just see where that leads you. For me, that's the fun of it. Some people look at things and they go, oh, I want to paint that. I want to paint that. I kind of want to really go from imagination, and just let the paint lead me where I'm going to go, But I do want to get out and do more plein air. I'm looking at some plein air rig setups. I would like to go out right into the wooded areas or whatever, and just try to feel that moment and see what that does for me. And I've been planning on it. And one of the there's a famous watercolor painter. I'm not going to say the name, but I left him. He was talking about going out and doing plein air. I'm like, yeah, I really should do this year. I'll go out. And he leaves me a comment back, and he's like, this year, with like question marks. Why not today? And I was like, yeah, you're right. But it's like that particular day was not a good day. But I appreciate the encouragement. Now here, with these trees here, now here's one thing that I kind of like doing. I'm going to share this with you too. Sometimes you get like a lot of paint on it, looks a little too solid. Just mix a little bit of white into it, and it'll kind of break it up, and it'll create this little dimension. Won't look like snow, but it'll lighten it up to kind of just break it up a little bit. It just lightens up little spots on the tree. I really like that effect. Something I'll continue to do. And you can see how this is taking shape? It's becoming almost like a fantasy element, a fantasy woodland piece. You've got the distance and getting the atmosphere, and, I'm liking so far. It's taking shape. But of course, then I will do things and I'll say, I should have left that alone. I shouldn't have touched that. But see here now, okay, I'm going to give you what I'm thinking here. And then I thought, this is kind of dark in here. It would be kind of nice if I had some little yellow pops in here. So to give you my mindset, if you're painting and you're looking at it, you sit back and stroke your chin and kind of look at it and squint your eyes and say, what could this use right here? A little pop of yellow here, But see how I have this background. And again, I look back at it and I say, hey, stop. This looks pretty good right now. It'd be nice if you could, what you could do? I just thought of this. You could take your camera, okay, and take pictures of your painting in stages. Maybe I should do like a choose your own ending video. And I'll have a stop right here. If I stopped right here, I'll put a picture up of the painting. And then you don't have to go any further. You'll be happy. I'll stop it at 5-minute intervals, and then I'll do another one. And then I'll say, okay, if we went a little further, and here's this, don't watch any further if you were happy at that point. And I'll have like 4 pictures or 5 pictures of it at different various stages where I should have stopped. That would be interesting. But, I kind of look at it like, well, you're the artist. You kind of know best. And whatever you do, that's the piece. That's it. And, we're in this video age. You only know because you're watching the video as it plays out, right? So, like, let's say I just put the piece up on Instagram. People look at it and go, that's nice. And they never saw the progression, Today's date, could you imagine if there was like a Mona Lisa or something, one of these artists painted, and it was like, wait a minute, there was a whole better, he could have stopped there, some famous piece. It's like, yeah, he should have left that alone. That would have been even better. I don't know. Van Gogh, he put too many stars in the sky. It's like if he'd just left 3, it really would have had a different effect. I don't know. Starry Night. So I think this is cool here, though. I really like, and when I was finished with this piece, I looked at it and I thought, this is a really nice, has that fantasy element. I'd like to do more like this. And that's one thing about doing watercolor and the gouache, of course, is that can you do these experiments and have them repeatable? Randomness is fine, but like, let's say you want to paint something, you have to have that library of knowledge stored in your head where you go, okay, last time I did this and this did this A or this B, and I'm trying to achieve this. And I think for the new person starting out, when you're painting, you paint and you can't repeat success. And once success becomes more repeatable, then you start to really get into a swing of things. But watercolor is very unpredictable, so it can be a vicious master in a way when you're trying to do things. I think that's why I like this particular type of painting, the fast and loose and non-detail oriented, non-fussing, because I can do things with shapes and colors, and I can make something that looks like something, and yet it's abstract in a way, but it's not really abstract. So I don't know if you noticed, but this video here, I generally video with an iPhone. I found an iPhone 6. Yeah, I don't know why I never used it, like, or why I never sold it or traded it in or anything, but I thought, let me see how the older iPhone cameras film, because I have an iPhone 12 I film on, and like, I don't know, I'm never really happy with the results. This one here, I think, came out pretty good, except the brightness is going up and down. Anyway, so here I thought, let me see what happens if I tap in some yellow and just put it on here a little heavier with this little knife. I just picked up this little miniature palette knife, and I thought, well, let me tap it in. It'll look like flowers, kind of. It kind of does, but then I kind of mess with it a little bit. So yeah, I'm guilty of fiddling as much as the next person, but I'm experimenting. I have an alibi, it's like, okay, I have an excuse. I'm like, let me see what happens here. And the finished product oftentimes is good. I just think that sometimes you could have had something really cool left unsaid. But I did have another one, actually, that reminds me. I had another painting I did where someone said it didn't look like it was finished, and it could have used like a tree or something. This was a long time ago. And I thought, yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, it's easy to armchair quarterback choices, In the end of the day, you just got to say, well, I'm the artist, and whatever I do is part of that process. Now you can see I've scraped in the rocks there. I took the plastic card, and you can scrape those in. Those always help break up little areas, create little quick areas of detail, and scratching in twigs, sticks, tree, what do you call it? The main part of the tree. I'm having the trunk. That's what I'm trying to think of. Boy, I'm losing it here. The trunk of the tree. You can use that. But I always come back in and then I touch up a couple areas, because if there's no areas covering the trunk, you should only see like little sections of it, in my mind. Now, you saw all those paints I had in those containers. You really don't want to use, that's too much for the beginner, honestly. You should have a few paints that you work with. And that's why you notice I haven't been using a palette lately. I've been just squeezing out the paints. So it limits me. So before I start, I go, okay, I think I'm going to do some blue and this and my indigo, which I like to use. And I squeeze out a few, and then due to laziness, mostly, I won't grab and I'll go, okay, let's try a green. Let's try this. Let's try that. And it kind of helps you plan it out a little bit, because, you can keep grabbing different paints. So if they're all in a palette, like I had before, I had the palette and I probably had like 25 different paints in there. You kind of tend to jump around all and try using those different paints. It doesn't look right. If you're going to have a palette that you allow to dry, then you should keep really no more than 8 or 10 colors on there. But I really been squeezing this out. For the longest time, I did the dried paint thing. It's really hard on your brush, too, because you're trying to scrub out, the paint, loosen it up. And you really get a better intensity by going straight from the tube and then letting your brushes, like the Hake brush with water, do the water work, but kind of paint neatly, which is neat, in other words, straight from the tube. It's expensive, though. Watercolor paints are not cheap. So the more paint you're using from the tube, you could say, well, why aren't you using acrylic? I've had people tell me that too. Why aren't you using acrylic? Why don't you just use oils? I just like the way the watercolors and gouache work. I enjoy it. if I spend a little bit more on paints. But, I buy cheaper paints too. I try to buy ones that are a little quality, light, fast, student grade and all that. But again, it's about having fun and experimenting in the process. I've bought a few bad paints over the years that I thought were kind of chalky and really didn't do what I wanted them to do. But most of these paints today that you squirt out, you use out of the tube, most paints today are pretty good. Most paper's pretty good. I mean, you could spend a lot of money. Honestly, you could spend, I had a person ask me, like, what's it going to take for me to get started? I never really thought about it. I should do a video on this where, like, you have nothing. And it's like, okay, where do I even start? And most people, I think, are going to go to, like, Hobby Lobby. They're going to go to, an art store. And then once you get there, what do you buy? Well, the first thing you should buy is, obviously the paper. You're going to need watercolor paper. And, I mean, I would buy something that's not super expensive. I mean, you don't want to put all your money in this. Let's say you go to Hobby Lobby or Michael's, buy their house brand. They have improved on them. They're much better. And go there when it's 50% off. Buy those and buy a box of the paints that they have, like Artist Loft or a set. And the reason why I say buy a set and not the exact colors that we're telling you, I mean, I could give you the roadmap and say buy ultramarine blue, buy this, buy that. And here's the 6 paints. Just buy the pre-made pack. They're like $10. You get it for half off. It's $5. You can mix those colors into what you want to do. This is just your first dip into this. So you have that. The hardest thing that's going to be is getting like a Hake brush, because the Ron Ranson Hake brush, you can only get them online, but they do have similar brushes like that in the store. There's these off-brand ones, and really you're just going in there to see if you're going to like it at first. And so if you can keep it under like $30, hey, I'd rather have you come in a little cheaper, find out you enjoy it. You know what I first started with? I bought a little book of like a sketchbook. Couldn't have cost more than a couple bucks. And I bought one of those, those little trays like kids use. I didn't know any better, honestly. I thought, let me see if this is just fun, whatever. I bought the ones with the round cakes in there. There were probably like 7 colors. And I painted like a little scene with like a little lighthouse. And after I said, this is kind of fun. I kind of like this. I mean, I think this is like for little kids or something. But then I started thinking, with all the knowledge people have out there, there's got to be somebody that's killing it with this. Like more advanced. Like there's somebody that's just like, an expert. There's probably people pulling off some really amazing things. This is how little I knew. And I go online, I start looking around. I found people like Stephen Cronin, Dave Usher. And then, of course, I found the grandfather of the Hake brush, which is Ron Ranson. And, here, let me just stop for a second and tell you. I decided to grab some white here and make a little waterfall, a little running water through the middle here, just to create a little area of light. So I'm using white gouache here. Just taking some white gouache. This is, again, it's like a house brand. And just kind of making it look like running water, some moving water. But when I went on there, I'm like, there's somebody out here doing like, there's the Bob Ross of watercolor painting. And I found those guys, and of course, Frank Clark. And that was the first time I saw these guys, squeezing watercolor paint out of a tube. But I actually said out loud to myself, I said, this watercolor paint comes in a tube? And then that was like when I'm like, okay, I'm going to the hobby store. And I went there and I'm like, I got to see what they have. And I went in the store and I'm like looking around. And I come home with these tubes and these different things. But when I found Frank Clark and I ordered his Hake brush, that's when I'm like, okay, this is the way to go. And that was before I found Ron Ranson and the Ron Ranson Hake. When you see me do these little cut scenes and the slide over, that means I probably did a little drying. I did a little dry with the hair dryer. So I don't want to make you sit through the whole hair dryer thing. Now here's my light in a bottle. You just saw my light in a bottle. I have about an inch of paint and to a bottle in a spray bottle. And if I think it needs a little sunlight on top, a little bit of light. And this one here's got a little orange in it. I got one with yellow and one with orange. And a lot of people seem to be interested in my light in a bottle. And so if I don't want to disturb anything and I feel I need a little more light, I'll give it a little spray with that. But make sure you cover your area. I told people before to put a little newspaper, whatever, behind there. I don't care in my room what, if there's overspray, but there's that. And then maybe wear a mask if the little droplets. I don't think they're going to do anything, but Mr. Safety, right? So I'm just going to touch up this little waterfall here. And you see now the waterfall, it goes from wide to narrow, or the little stream of water. So it's going back and it's getting smaller. And it's making you feel like, ooh, that goes way back there, And it gives you a little more depth. So all of a sudden we got depth in this little fantasy painting. And then we've got light coming from the top and the distant trees in the background, So that's it for this painting. I hope you guys enjoyed this and my crazy rambling. I try to give you a lot of information in these videos, and I hope for you nothing but the best. Here it is. I stuck this on a board because I don't have a mat this size. And just to kind of zoom in and around, just to show you the little details. There's that white I mixed in, little pops of yellow. And here it is in my little digital frame. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time.